Welcome back. We're taking a first look at some Abattoir gameplay, and I'd like to mention two known bugs that are already being addressed and should be fixed in the near future. Your current level 21 glyphs will get knocked down to level 19. The glyph itself shows additive damage in the tooltip, but it is in fact multiplicative. Again, both of these issues are known by the dev team and are already being addressed. To get into Abattoir, you need to craft a Bloodforged sigil, which can be done at the Oculus provided you've completed the season journey. This requires 7 of the 9 tasks on the final chapter to do so, along with all the other chapters, but the final chapter is the most difficult given the tasks. This video is intended to give you an idea of how powerful your character will need to be to at least complete the first tier. This character runs most tier 100 nightmare dungeons in just under 5 minutes, and as you'll see, the final bosses spawn with affixes similar to elites. So, if something like Suppressor or Vampiric is difficult for your character, you may need to fish for better RNG in order to complete certain tiers, or craft more sigils, which will require more dust, meaning you just have to go through the process again. Take a look at this meme clip where my lidless wall decided my time had come. If you're unfamiliar with this system, which was used in Diablo 3 and Diablo Immortal for rifts, you'll kill monsters until you fill up the gauge, and once it's full, the guardians will spawn. Defeat them before the timers run out, and it's a victory. There seems to be a noticeable power increase on the Guardians, which, based on feedback from other Diablo partners, appears to be the gatekeeper on how far you can progress. This build will finish with about 5 minutes remaining, and is likely capable of clearing a couple more tiers without any changes to its setup. And keep in mind the new glyph we have is incredibly powerful, so just running Nightmare Dungeons should help you progress to some degree. I do suspect classes will start to become pigeonholed into builds if progressing in AoZ is your goal. Regardless, you're going to need high survivability or immunity paired with burst damage to nuke down the Guardians. Be aware that you do not need to kill every single mob in order to fill the gauge that spawns the Guardian, so you can go for large packs and skip single mobs that are out of the way if your time is tight. With this type of content, once you become stuck, it's typically a better use of time to progress your character elsewhere. For example, Nightmare Dungeons to continue ranking tiers of blood rather than doing multiple attempts on the same difficulty that just keep ending up in failure. So keep that in mind when the competitor in you comes out, but don't let it stop you for the moral victory. Make your own call. It's just a video game. I'll leave links to this Bone Spear build along with my Druid Pulverized and Stormclaw builds in the video description for anyone who's interested. It would be greatly appreciated if anyone shares a build, regardless of their class, that they're having success with to help others in the community. You can also use buffs inside of here, so make sure your character is rocking some when the content difficulty ramps up. Best of luck in the new content, and there will be plenty of updated builds in the near future, as tweaks are made to them. I'll let the remainder of the gameplay run out so you can see the pacing and the step up that the Guardians at the end. The remainder of the video, we'll talk about some general strategies that may help you improve your time in case this type of content is new to you, or you haven't played some of the previous Diablo titles. You may want to move from Elite Pack to Elite Pack, and this will depend on your build. If you're strong at taking out elites and you have a fairly tanky character, you may be able to get multiple packs of elites and then AoE everything down. Or you can just move from mob cluster to mob cluster. Something that's inefficient is kind of what you're seeing here. Mobs spread out all over the screen, killing a handful of them, moving to the next pack. You want to get as many mobs grouped up that you're capable of surviving, take them all down, and then move to the next section of mobs where you can repeat the process. This is going to improve your time overall, allow you to spawn the Guardian quicker. If your build is capable of doing high amounts of damage to single targets, or very few targets in the case of what we have with the Guardians here, you'll do okay with getting these Guardians down. Again, depending on your build, will also determine how quickly you can take these Guardians down once they're spawned. Certain builds will be better at that than others. You may need to spawn the Guardian with 7 minutes remaining in order to clear a tier, or you may only need 1 minute. A lot of this is very subjective to the type of character you're playing, and you're going to need to run the rift accordingly in order to be successful. You'll see we've come across a shrine, and these are active in these Abattoir rifts as well, and this is great. You can save these shrines. In fact, I'm going to save this particular shrine and wait for these Guardians to spawn, and then I'm going to come back to the shrine and go face them. You can save them, hopefully spawn the Guardian nearby, or you can leave a handful of mobs near it if your timer is doing just fine. You don't have to grab the shrine as you pass it, and this can be used to complete tiers that you otherwise might not be able to. See, I've gone into a couple of rooms further ahead, and I know at this point that this Guardian is going to spawn from the number of mobs in this room, and as soon as it does, I'm going to go back and grab that shrine that I mentioned. And you'll see that I'm working back towards it just to save time, even though I've got plenty of time remaining for this particular tier. Again, with my build, I've got double suppressor, which is really unfortunate, but this difficulty is low enough that I should be able to complete it. I'm trying to get these positioned in such a way that I can bounce the bone spears off either the pillar or the wall, so that the suppressor mobs are still getting hit by the return projectiles, finally I get them lined up. And although that's more specific to this particular build, keep things like that in mind when you're dealing with your own builds and trying to clear these mobs. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.